aloe vera na plant for it to mature is 2 to 3 years. Like yung para ma-achieve niya yung full size niya. Yung full size niya is nagre-range yung height from 2.5 to 3 feet. Then yung maximum root length is 7 to 10 inches. And yung maximum crown size niya is 1.5 to 2 feet in width. Then yung leaves niya, since ayun yung palaging hina-harvest dun sa kanya and kinakat siya from the base, yung average growth rate per month is 3 to 4 centimeters of growth in each leaf. And the next one is yung ito yung section nung leaf ng isang aloe vera. So meron siyang 3 parts, yung rind which is yung outer covering, yung latex which is ito yung wina-wash out kapag hinarvest yung aloe vera na gel. Then yung pinaka-useful part nito which is yung gel sa loob. So yung rind is yung outer covering which is the rind. Ito yung usually tinatapon lang pero in this case, I want to use it as biocompost para to minimize waste. Then yung given na yung gel which is the inner part of the plant na ginagamit for medicinal purposes. So ang maximum size ng isang leaf is it ranges from 30 to 40 cm in length. And yung maximum width niya is 2.5 to 4.5 centimeters. And yung average weight ng isang leaf is 0.7 to 1.3 kilograms. So medyo mabigat siya. And marami rin siyang naproduce na gel. So ito yung plan ko na gawin dun sa plants. So for the aloe gel, pwede siya kasing gawing drink and pwede siyang i-convert to a skincare product and pwede yung given na nga yung purpose as for medicinal purposes. And then yung dun din naman sa rind which is the aloe rind, plano ko siya gawing biocompost.
John, the sheet is not showing in full screen. Maybe yeah, okay. That's good.
So ito naman yun dun sa yield nung per plant and per leaf. So ang mature leaf na nag-yield per year is 6 to 12 leaves. So medyo limited siya if i-compute since medyo maliit ng yung yield ng isang plant. Then for space requirements, for each plant, it needs 0.5 square meters for it to grow. Then for the sprouts naman, like yung baby na plants ng aloe vera na nagagawa ng isang mother plant, it produces 6 to 10 sprouts. And yung average mature leaf weight naman for the yield per leaf is 0.7 to 1.3 kilograms. And yung 25% of that weight comes from the rind. So majority nung weight na yun comes from the gel. And no gel yield na is assuming na umabot siya dun sa maximum na size ng leaf is 900 grams or 900 milliliters if i-convert to in liquid. Then yung proposed division of produce is per leaf. I'm planning to get at least 4 jars of 225 milliliters of gel to maximize their produce. And ito na yung sa sun carving, sir. In-update ko lang siya noon. Like yung doon sa...
The jar, how many jars per day or per month, per week?
It's actually per leaf, sir. So, per year, yung harvest na is dapat daw parang every 3 months. Okay. So, if per year siya, like 3 leaves per plant lang, so that's already 3 kilos per plant. And if mag-plant ako ng madami, makakaproduce din ako ng maraming jars of gel.
Right, okay.
So, yun sir. Then, in-update ko lang ng onti yun dun sa sun carving. from 4 p.m. Nilipat ko siya ng onti dun sa 4:30 kasi yung plan ko is I'm trying to create parang environment inside the building na nagpo-produce ng condensation since yung aloe vera na plants kasi hindi nila kailangan ng marami masyadong tubig. So I'm planning to use na yung time of day na drastic yung change from warm to cold.
Very good.
Para at least magamit ko yung sa wind carving. Parang i-combine ko yung pag-receive ng structures ng ng hot air and cold air to create condensation inside the building na
mag-water. Aloe vera require a lot of sunlight?
Yes sir, pero for the, yung magkaiba kasi doon is yung baby sprouts. Required nila is yung direct sunlight, then yung yung for the baby sprouts sir, hindi na masyadong direct sunlight since medyo heat sensitive sila. And for the bigger ones naman, like yung mature plant na, pwede na sila mag-receive ng direct sunlight since medyo mas makapal na yung leaf nila and medyo hindi na sila masyadong prone dun sa pagka-dry ng leaves. So, yun lang, sir.
Okay. It's just an exploration just to give everyone a picture of what we're saying. If you have that information that the baby sprouts doesn't need a lot of sunlight, and then the adult ones need more sunlight. It gives you an idea that just probably, the architecture is moving. Like, the moment it matures, it becomes hidden from sunlight, etc. Just an idea, just for everyone to just to inspire everyone that that's how you get an idea from the information that you get. All right, so you may or may not use that. Sige, go ahead, John.
Sir, yun na po. Ito na po yung last na Okay. Yun yung last na slide nung...
Okay, can I see the 003?
This one, sir.
Okay. Okay. Maybe think of the program that is very organic, relatable to the aloe vera. What kind of activities can this generate that is also relatable with your side, just like the approach of Leia. But of course, I understand that sometimes you place this plant on the side without thinking of the surroundings. Then try to find a compatibility. But the products it's produced by this plant already give us an idea what it could be, so that you can generate a complex program, complex spaces with those activities. All right. Sige, I'll explain that later on. Okay, thank you, John. Sige, let's go to, oh yeah. Did you have a question?
Wala naman, sir.
Okay, sige.
If ever naman to mag-message na lang ako.
All right, sige. Sige, let's go to, thank you. Let's go to Jao.
Hello. Is it seen?
Yeah, I think it's...
Right. So for this week, I just kind of expounded on the biocompost, and then I started iterating my sun carving to a more organic shape. So first off, the biocompost process, I didn't get to expound on this last week, so I put it in here now. So basically, you need a pit, but a wooden box could work as well, of 30 centimeters deep, and then on top of that, chicken mesh, then sand, 1 to 2 centimeters, then bio waste, then a cover. But in the middle of the bio waste and cover, that's where you put your millipedes. And from this, you add their food. So relative to the site, since there's a lot of trees here, we could use uh, dried leaves for their food, and as well as the banana is gonna be produced, since there's no actual use, or there so that there's gonna be use for the banana peels if this thing progresses. So yeah, um, but the problem of millipedes compared to like earthworms of the normal vermicompost is that when they don't have food anymore, they're gonna eat the plants itself. So it's important that we have to put it in a separate place. Then, uh, and as well, millipedes and earthworms could also eat the same as their weight. So I guess that's that depends on how much millipedes you put in per square foot. So it says here that you could add one half be per square foot of millipedes in depending on the size of the pit. Then second to the last, the temperature. Yeah, it needs to be 12 degrees to 24, but at 12 degrees below, you'll notice these millipedes start to like to eat less. So I guess that's important. So where you place the millipedes itself. So lastly, for this one, the extraction. Basically, after 4 weeks, you'll see the bio waste turned into compost, biocompost. So this could be easily filtered through like a hand screener, based from experience. Because when I was high school, I did this thing, so that could help as well. Then yeah, for the next one is the carving. Uh, before I last meeting, I wanted to uh, delve into more organic shapes, so that it could reflect sound. Nothing will be bounced with the hard edges, and as well as in a poetic sense, um, it provides intimacy and protection for the people and for the plants. So the way I approached it is I started with a pebble shape, and I with a clay mold I kind of just carved it without adding the perimeters. Then, oops, what is it? Then after that, I kind of just added the perimeters of the sun carving that I did before, like last meeting. Then in here, you just see how I created openings, kind of just basic openings. I'll show you the pictures, but here's the one of the sketch models I did. So just basically just cut out openings, and I wanted to keep it more natural, very human. So you see a lot of uh, not roughness. So yeah. Then for the sun carving, I applied the one I did before, but I just instead of using 4 o'clock p.m., I just went up a bit 3 o'clock p.m. because it doesn't really affect the how the sun. I mean how the plant grows, because it needs a minimum of 6 hours. So I guess that's fine. But I and here I approached carving in different ways. For the 8 o'clock, I stretched the courtyard area, so I made it longer, so it could pass through. Then for the 12 o'clock straight, um, I just contoured the skin basically. Then the last one, I just cut out a piece of the skin itself. So yeah, then I guess that's it. Here are the pictures for the model. Here, this isn't scaled. It's just mostly experimentation. Then here's the sketch model I made. 1:100. So from here you see an opening. That could be an opening for the wind as well. And then as you can see with the use of like manila paper, I could replicate what the fiber, I mean the pseudo stem fiber stems thing I'm trying to create, and the how and and its relation with light, the opacity it could give. So it could give natural indirect light around the day, I guess. Then here's some pictures. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, so don't close your slide so that I won't forget my
Yeah.
comments. But um, long story short, I think I love your presentation. I can really see your dedication towards the project, that you are doing this initiative to make models and experiment on materiality and form as well. I want you to maintain that kind of attitude towards this work. And but of course, we're still in initial stages. But I appreciate the way you are advancing the methodology and the process. And if you keep doing this, the more mature your design is going to be later on, because the more you iterate, the more you think about and immerse yourself in this process, uh, the more ideas and the more refinement that you will achieve in your project. So as a comment, since we're here at in this particular slide, we're talking about Manila paper and then the translucent quality of it. Um, are you imagining that the actual project will be uh, made of the same material?
Because the original idea was uh like fiberglass, but instead of glass, it's the pseudo stem, the fibers, right? So when these fiberglass, I mean, sheets are made, or fabric, especially the matte one, it has a paper mache kind of quality. So I did the same thing for paper mache,
Okay.
so I could kind of replicate the thing, and like
Okay.
how durable it is with like the
Okay.
openings.
Okay. I love that you are going through this experience, but there's always a debate about, I don't know if you saw the articles by Architeaser or the other website talking about the dangers of seductive rendering the actual project. Me personally, when I have a project, I disdain from posting the renderings because I don't want to get pressured, or I don't want to get the same criticism as it looks good on the rendering, but the actual is not. You know what I mean? So in the same line of thinking, when it comes to making models, we're excited to create all these forms, and but the actual will be much bigger. Although I think I mentioned last time or a week ago, why we're doing bigger size models, because we want to replicate reality. The nearest the scale is to the reality, the better we can design it, because architecture is experiential. So if it's too small, you can't really experience that much. You can't really imagine the enveloping quality of the space. So, but when it comes to creating forms, the process of creating forms is very different, because when you're creating a form in a very small scale, even if it's big, let's say even if it's 1:20, but you're dealing with a material that is very different from the actual one. Um, Plywood is very different from cardboard. Um, and then the moment you scale the Manila paper into something one is to into 1:1, definitely it will have a different behavior structurally, and at the same time you also have to address the weathering properties the moment it gets wet, etc. But the thought process behind it's really good. Maybe the idea behind the translucence is what is inspiring you, then maybe that's how you work on the development of the design, like what similar properties in the actual world, in the construction industry, can replicate or mimic the same translucent quality achieving your model. Okay, I just want you guys to be very careful with um, comparing it with the actual thing. All right, I'm sure you're aware of that, but I just want to keep reminding everyone about it. Okay. What else? Yeah, but just to point out, like, remember, I was also very particular with when we are doing a very rectilinear, rectangular models. I don't want you guys to use very thin paper, worse bond paper because it's very flimsy. Because I said that we need to mimic the actual available materials, which are drywall, gypsum board, plywood, etc. So if you have a bond paper, it's flimsy. That's not how rigid it is. So that's why I always pick the thickest cardboard so that you can replicate the actual material. And then even if you want to create something very organic, sinuous, you will need to figure out how to construct it. When I was working for an office, we wanted to create a space that is shaped like a fuselage of a plane since it's curvilinear. And we know that in the actual world, since that interior project, we're not allowed to use concrete. Concrete is very moldable, like clay. That's why Zaha uses it. So, but when it comes to interior, especially if it's in a shopping mall, the materials that will be allowed are normally drywall construction. So I knew that we had to design the space using plywood. How do you use the curvilinear space using plywood? So we created scores. No? So we had to create those scores and then map the triangulation and then the facets so that we can achieve the um, perfect curvilinear fuselage type of space. Okay, and it's good that we were working on a very bigger scale model because whatever measurements we applied for the cardboard, the rigid plywood will apply when you scale it up into a plywood. Do you get it? So it's the same idea, same methodology when you are working um, with organic shape, etc., and then translating it to a model and then to the actual thing. You need to think of how is this going to stand? How is it going to be built? Do you understand? And then you have to remember that after this, you are going to detail it architecturally. So we are in the design development stage. So imagine building technology. That's why you need to take your building technology or the building science subjects very seriously because none of this is going to be useful if you don't know how to draw it. Because our communication with the layperson, not layperson, with our masons, with our carpenters, with our contractors is through our drawings. So in between what we're doing now, which is envisioning or proposing a design idea, and then between the builder is the building science, the building technology. All right, it's very, very important. Okay, we'll talk about that in detail later on. So can we go back to the previous slides? Okay, but I like the fact that even though it's very organic, um, it's even though it looks like poop, very fertilizer-like, you're still able to carve it, no? Where the plane, where the air is going to penetrate, etc., and then where the sun would go. So, but again, we want this to be performative. You know, right now it's good that you're exploring it as a shape. I really really love it. But again, like what Kyle said, don't fall in love with the first scheme. It will still develop and grow. And then we want to develop this not as very self-indulgent, like you're saying, self-indulgent. Ito yung trip ko, ito yung gusto ko, this is what I want. Because I'm an artist, I want to create a sculpture. So we want to bridge science with architecture. It's not really an art. So we need to put some knowledge behind this. So we need to make it perform. So how do we make it perform? By introducing the program, the activities, etc. So you can still this can serve as a DNA of the entire building. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the previous slide. But I
Right.
love how intuitive you are with the entire process. So let me ask you again. I remember you affirming that you are using a banana tree also.
Yeah.
So sorry, maybe I just forgot. What's the millipede connection?
Oh, basically it's all around my
Right?
site. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like specifically that lot. There's a lot of millipedes, and
Okay.
with the vermicompost, I mean the millicompost, you could apply it with the banana circle.
Okay. Do you really like working on the banana tree? Because my only worry is just like my concern with the work of care is that probably you have a very limited plot of land and then the produce, if you have that information already, the maximum minimum yield per year. Well, I remember maybe it was you or the other guy who presented when you harvest one plant, let's just call, I know it's not a tree, one tree, another one grows. Tama ba? On
Yeah.
the side like that. So that I remember. So you need to think of those things like the turnover cycle of a of your facility of your project. So, but I like the millipede idea. That's why while it's still early, if you're not sure with the banana yet, since it's a what other plants uh, can you do? Can you develop? Can you explore using the millipede? But you're free to stick with banana. Don't get me wrong, huh? Just exploring the ideas if you have the millipede idea, which is also strong. So and for everyone, the next step is really to think about the activities and the program accompanied by these ideas that you produce. Okay, but the presentation is very good. I love the layout, the proportion of the text, etc. It's very mature. The design aesthetic. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Jao. Can you go to Mark?
Hi, sir. Yes.
So, sige, go ahead.
I thought so.
Next, si Bea. Okay. I have a feeling that Kyle got stuck with the client. So anyway, let's go.
Hi, sir. This is a continuation of what I presented last week, and I presented my community of student athletes, and I wanted to do something for them, and that's how I arrived with the banana plant, the dwarf Cavendish banana plant. And for this week, I thought of a different approach, and I wanted to know how it's going to end up. So I arrived on.
Yeah, just continue. Just turn on something.
Okay.
Okay, game. Sorry.
Okay. So like I said, I wanted to do. And hindi naman wanted. Another approach came to me, and that's the plant-based protein powder. And I found it interesting because I think it could cater more to my community than just having banana produced. And this is what I found out about the plant-based protein powder. They're a mixture of different plant species that can isolate the protein, isolating the fats and the carbs away. That helps you build muscles and muscle recovery and all that. And it also has a lot of benefits. Like it also has advantages compared to the dairy-based protein powders, and an example is lactose and dairy-free, reduces chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and finally it boosts the metabolism or the digestion.
Oh,
And
go work
I
out ka.
yeah, no, I no, I don't apply this to myself. Um, wait, but I'm on next. And so next, man, disrupting my flow here. Uh, I ask myself, what if I could grow the ingredients of plant-based protein powder? And I've searched up the ingredients, and this is what I've came up with. So it's pea protein, flaxseed, quinoa protein, pumpkin seed, and chia seed. All when you crush them or grind them individually, and you put them together on a single container, you can have that plant-based protein powder, and that's what I'm aiming for. So the following sheets are the plants, the 5 plant species. So I think what you guys only need to know is what I'm getting. So for here, if you can see my pointer, I'm pointing at the green here, the fruit pod. So yeah, I'll go to the next one. So this is the pod, and it'll just go here, and it will shell the piece, and you can store the piece after, and you can move on to the next ingredient. uh, get the bowl of the flax plant, and again, it's all very similar because you want to turn them into powders and put them together. So in here you remove the ball and you crush them, and you get this second picture. And again, it's the same with quinoa plant. You crush them and you turn them into powder again. Same with pumpkin, you remove the pulp and the seed inside, and you turn them. uh, you keep the seed and you crush them later. And same with chia, you get the powder again. So I think it's a very good idea, and I also thought of what it could do, for the community, because I've looked up that there are plant protein based recipes that uh, are done on YouTube and on blogs, and I think my community, I envision it to, I know, maybe sell those recipes, cookies, protein bars, pancakes, etc. There are a lot, and I think it can do a lot for the athletes. What I'm doubting here in my idea is maybe the 5 plants might turn into chaotic in terms of my form, because I have to cater to the 5 of these, and I'm afraid of maybe it will turn chaotic rather than what I had with the banana plant, which was very straightforward, very interesting. And I wanted to ask if what do you think of my direction?
Okay, this is the last slide.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think it's a good diversion from the banana plant. And so can we go back to the different seeds that you are trying to harvest?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, I maybe you've been observing the previous presentations and critique, and that's why you have this worry about not having a single focus direction, and it's not about the number of topics that you have. It's all about being able to synthesize all the information. Okay. The only concern that we have is that you might be doing a lot when you can only when you can focus on one process, because it's okay
Yes.
to have all these 5 seeds that results for you researching for 5 plants, different kinds of species of plants, for as long as all the same process. Okay, and all the
Yes.
same, and it all require the same um, nutrients, sunlight, water, etc. Okay, because but if it's going to be like the previous presenter, I think it was Jao. Oh no, it's John Francis, when he was talking about like the aloe vera being young, not needing a lot of sunlight, and then if it's going to be mature already, it needs a lot of light, and then if you have that condition for each plant differently, then you need to think twice. Then you need to focus on probably less. Um, as to how many, it's really up to you. Right now, we're looking at the complexity of the thought process behind each project and how you can turn one idea into a building. Okay, so but it doesn't matter if it's 5 plants or more. Even if you have an animal with it, it's okay. That sort of becomes part of the architecture and the process as well. But what we're looking at is you have the plant, how you harvest the plant, and how it turns into uh, to a seed or a pod or whatever, and then the products that you are going to produce from it, and then the activity that it will generate. All right, and then with all of those
Yes,
things,
sir.
when you synthesize it, what's the architecture behind it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just can't pick which approach should I take, the banana or this ambitious plant-based protein powder.
I would choose this one because, but like my concern is the same concern as yours, but you need to pick. Uh, at the end of the day, you need to pick if you're going to take all five or you're the only one who can answer that question. If this will entail a lot of process. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
So if each plant requires um, a specific different process, then you just need to pick one. But if they're all the same, then it's okay to have five.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Sige. Uh, other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mario, ikaw na.
Ay, ako, sir.
Hmm.
Sige po.
Then Jericho.
Wait lang, ang dumi. Nakakahiya. Ba't ganyan? Meron na ba?
Wala pa.
Sir, I think you called Bea first, so maybe she can
Ayan.
go next after Mac. Tas ako.
Okay.
Wait lang. Nag-share screen na ba, sir?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Meron na, sir.
Meron na. 1.9.
So,
Pero hindi siya full screen, ha?
pero kita naman, sir, di ba?
Yes, kita naman. Unless you're really zooming into the picture. It's
Hindi
okay.
naman. Ganun, sir. So, yung dinagdag ko, sir, na sheets, more on nag-focus ako sa yields. So, gusto ko malaman kung gaano kadaming materials ang needed para makakreate ng isang product. Tsaka kung like gaano kadaming materials ang mapoproduce ng isang tree para malaman ko kung gaano kadaming tree ang kailangan ko sa site ko na itanim para...
Mac, are you aware that naka-zoom in yung image? This happened with John kanina.
Paano zoom in, sir? Like zoom in, zoom.
It's not the entire page that is showing. Is it the same interface that you're seeing?
Minining
Yan, okay.
Okay lang yan, sir.
Okay na yan.
Yo, ang dumi ng ano ko. Okay na, sir.
Okay na yan, sige.
So, ayun. So, yun. More on nakafocus ako sa yields para malaman kung gaano kadaming materials kailangan magawa sa isang product tsaka kung gaano kadaming mapoproduce ng isang tree na materials. So, dito, sir, like juvenile tree, 3 to 9 years old, pwede ka na mag-start ng harvest. So, yung harvesting is every 30 days, sir. So, per tree, sir, pwede kang mag-harvest ng 4 to 5 raw leaves, sir, which is 2 to 3 meter long. Tapos, 1 raw leaf can produce 2 pandan strips, sir. So, yung length nun is 1 to 1.5 meter. Ready na yun for weaving, sir. So, ito updated. Sir?
Yeah. It's good, it's good.
Parang updated process lang kung paano ina-harvest and wini-weave. So, una harvesting, detorning, stripping, drying, then pressing, then weaving. Tapos next is, eto sir, parang yung kung gaano kadaming materials ang kailangan from the tree to a product, sir. So parang sa 4 na tree, sir, makaka-harvest ka ng around 16 raw leaves, sir. So sa 16 raw leaves na yon, makakapag-produce ka ng 36 pandan strips to produce 1 pandan bayong, sir. So parang based dito, sir?
Isang bayong lang.
Yes, sir, isang bayong lang. So parang based dito, sir, parang like may idea kung gaano kadami yung kailangan kong tree na
Pero all
i-plant sa...
pandan to lahat.
Yes, sir. Pandan tree siya, hindi yung pandan pang food.
Pero dried to, dried.
Yung pandan strips, sir, yun na yung na-process na.
Okay.
So yung parang yung raw leaves niya, sir, kasi medyo malaki parang 2 to 3 meters. Tapos ipa-process yon parang dito, sir, oh. Ayan. Yeah. So parang sa raw leaves na yan, sa isang raw leaf, sir, pwede ka makakuha ng 2 pandan strip na 1 to 1.5 meter long, sir. Okay, so parang, pero depende pa rin yun sa product, sir. So pwedeng more than 2 pandan strip per 1 raw leaf, sir. Pero for the bayong, sir, parang per leaf, sir, 2 pandan strip.
Okay.
Na 1 to 1.5 meters. So
for everyone's information, this is the kind of research that we want because that I think is missing in a lot of presentation, like that question. But there's something missing in this presentation, which is the area of each pandan tree ba? Did you
yes,
say?
Sir.
Ayun. So and then you need to answer if the farm or the pandan trees are located within your property or outside?
Sir, outside, sir. So,
pwede naman ganun guys. Kung gusto nyo outside. Pero you need to identify gaano kalayo, like the distance to travel, like that. Pero ideally rin, it's within the site. But in some cases, I think if it's going to be just within walking distance, and in the case of Marius' proposal, it's just within the area, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yung site ko, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Dyan lang.
Okay.
So, dito, sir, ayun, 1 pandan bayong. So, kailangan mo kapag-harvest at least sa 4 na tree to have like 16 raw leaves. Tapos yung 16 raw leaves na yon, ipaprocess mo siya. So, makakapag-produce ka ng 36 pandan strips to create 1 bayong. So, based dito, sir, parang may idea kung gaano kadaming trees ang itatanim ko sa site ko. So parang at least 20 to 25 trees. Pero depende pa rin yung kung ilang taon na din yung trees, sir. Kasi kung mas matanda yung puno, mas maraming leaf ang pinoproduce nun. So, ayun, sir. Pero yun, at least siguro ganun para magkaroon ng decent number ng production ng product.
Okay.
Yun lang, sir. Tapos ito, like yung model. 7,
but I think it will be more interesting if you locate the tree within the property so that it's more complex.
Yes, so nagsa-search pa rin ako nun yung parang like kung may strategy lang kung paano yung pagtanim, yung placing ng mga trees.
Thickness of the ground and the soil.
Yes, sir.
And then
kasi ang hirap maghanap, sir, nakakita ako. Kailangan ko, hindi ko siya ma-access kasi may bayad yung research.
Bad trip naman. Pero yung katulad nung ginawa ni Kier, yung planting system, the spacing.
Yes, sir. Yun nga, sir, yung hinahanap ko. Medyo nahihirapan lang ako kasi like yung mga pinanood kong sa YouTube, sir, na farm, parang gubat lang siya, sir, eh. Walang placing, eh. Yung sa Laguna kasi maraming ganito, sir.
That can be a basis if you don't have a very research-ish type of material. Sometimes when you see examples or images, then probably you can have an assumption. Then this is where the architect comes in, the architectural drawing knowledge. Probably you can have broken lines, jotting down. You know what I mean? Like creating those, what do you call that? Imaginary lines. and then creating assumption, oh, this might be 0.5. Do you get
sige,
it?
sir.
Like that. But of course, ideally, it should be scientific. But if
Yes, sir.
the information is lacking, there are methods that we can probably use to create an intelligent assumption. So the assumption should be intelligent naman. Don't just say, oh, based on this picture, it looks like that. Then you need to
Sure.
prove in the picture by drawing lines, etc., that it's probably 500 mm. Like that. Okay?
Sige, sir.
Ayun. And then, ayun. I want to take back what I said na it can be outside the property, but I think it will be more complex if the plant itself is located within the property to create a more complex building because
Ay, saka sa loob ng property.
yeah,
So,
that's what I meant. That's what I know. I think it's better because if it's going to be outside,
hindi pwede.
the idea of growing, we
Wala na.
use it, eh. Yeah, oh yeah, and then
Ano?
growing and then using it. Do you follow? And then like
Yes,
how maybe if I missed the part wherein like from the moment you plant it and it grows, how long is the period before you go to the maturity of
wait lang. Kasi yung nakalagay lang, nakita ko lang, sir, parang like juvenile phase, 3 to 9 years old. Pero,
okay.
wait lang, sir.
But the moment
Kasi,
you harvest, the plant doesn't die naman.
Hindi, sir. As long as hindi mo uubusin yung dahon, sir. More on lang.
Okay.
4 to 5 leaves lang, sir.
Does this require water? Like, is it a mangrove type of plant?
Kasi maraming species niyan dito, sir, sa Pilipinas. So, yung kinuha ko, sir, yung species na best malapit sa coastal line kasi yun yung site ko, sir. So,
Okay.
merong species na sa pwedeng yung sa gubat, yung niya, environment.
Okay.
Pero yung sa akin, sir, medyo eto, sir, yung sa weather niya, sa soil, kunyari sa soil, sir, can adapt extraordinary range of coastal soil, tapos prefers full sunlight and open. Tapos kaya din niya ng like makatolerate ng waterlogging for at least 6 months.
Okay. Sige. You need to integrate that with architecture.
Yes, sir.
Very good, but again, we need to move on later on with the program, etc.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But I can imagine the architecture also, like, you're creating bayong, and what else can you create with those? Are these the same materials as the pawid or the walls in the bahay kubo?
Sir? Pwede din, sir. Like, may mga banig din kasi parang pwede din siya, sir.
Okay. Alright. Good. Sige. Thank you.
Kasi ito din yung physical model.
Okay.
Okay na.
Okay na yan. Okay, Bea.
Okay, I'll just share screen.
Sige, just go ahead.
Let me exit. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do was kind of improve my carving because I remember when Cooks or I don't know, Cooks, I think. Okay, Cooks, he said that mine was really focused on the summer solstice, which I really wanted to focus on at first, since that's like the hottest time of the year in the Philippines, and the rest of the time it's kind of pretty cool. So then it's something that I didn't really feel like I needed to take consideration to, like the winter solstice. So then instead, like for this one, I kind of just redid it and combined both summer solstice and winter solstice, and then chose the same times as I did for summer solstice, which is 9 o'clock and 11:58 and then 3 o'clock. So then after that I kind of wanted to redo the carvings as well. I kind of did so much. I really spent a lot of time doing a bunch of types of carving. So then the first row is the summer solstice one, which I did last week, where there's like the middle hole where the sun tunnel and then the entrances carved by the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock sun, and then the combined version, which was the one that I created a physical model of. Then the second row actually is the winter solstice. Yeah, which I did the same thing, the same process as the summer solstice. And then the third row actually combines the two, which I felt was appropriate because I remember when Kyle was saying that it would be better if the sun tunnel was more of like a cone shape rather than like, pierced straight through. So then I really appreciated that comment and kind of took it into the design process as well. And so since the height of this whole thing ideally is 6 meters, because I remember saying last meeting where parks, especially in Ayala Labang, usually want to be low rise. So then I wanted it to be 2 floors in construction, but like for the structure, but then, it can be like a third floor, but then more of a roof type of thing. So then, yeah, I kind of, like in the carving, I kind of wanted to explore how it would be like for like dividing that entire carving into 2 floors and then seeing how it would be like the spaces in between. And then also kind of removing the top part and seeing how each figure was, since I noticed that there were like 4 individual like solid shapes in, like if you see that this thing, yeah, there's 4 individual shapes that are like the major parts in the form. Yeah, so it zoomed out. Okay, and then yeah, in like the second time I tried playing with the carving, I really wanted to experiment with the roofs even and kind of play with the type of roofing it could have, because I remember someone telling me, I don't know, like flat roofs are kind of hard to maintain, and the main thing I want to ensure with this structure is that it's easy to maintain, especially since it's a public space and in a park. I wanted it to be like kind of, easy and also accept like a sufficient amount of sunlight. And since it's a flat roof, it does receive a lot of sunlight, but then I wanted it to be kind of tilted in a way that, like, for example, in the morning or afternoon, there'd be like a space that receives the most amount of sun or something like that. And then, yeah, there's like kind of 3 types of roofs here. You could see it in the first model in the first, third, and fourth row. I kind of played with the roofs there and saw how it kind of connected with the sun tunnel as well. And then yeah, I actually particularly like the fourth one in the second row. I don't know if you can. Okay, I'll just do this one. I like that the most actually. Okay, there. But then I was kind of concerned with how enclosed it was. So then I started to research on materials I could use that still accepted UV rays, since it's what's best for the plants to thrive in. Because if you use materials that block UV rays, you kind of block the nutrients that they would get. So then I started to look at what do you call that? They're like giant greenhouses that people actually make in other countries, and they use ETFE, which is a kind of plastic that uses fluorine as the main material in the plastic, which I found really interesting, since it was used actually for aerodynamics or something like that field instead of architecture. But then later on, architects kind of saw how it could be used in greenhouses and such. So then I felt like that would be a really cool material to research on. I actually didn't make a plate for that because I just put it in my notebook. But yeah, just to mention, if I choose to do like a solid shape that has like fewer openings than the other forms that I made here. Yeah. Anyway, so the next thing I did, I redid my bird research, because my bird research was kind of really general, I thought. And last Saturday, I had a picnic with my friends in the site to kind of just see the experience around the area and just live a whole day in the space. So what I noticed a lot for the birds, like in fact, I really wanted to see if I could change like the different like something I could like research more on. But then I like when I was eating, there were so many birds just like flying through, and I noticed that was actually this blue bird. That not that one. This blue one, the white colored kingfisher that just really just flies super low. So when I noticed that, I decided to research more on the flight patterns of each bird and see like I remember Kaz was saying how um instead of researching on how ampalaya can be used as a wall or as a roof, it can be a floor, which I found really like I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that since birds like flying lower ranges than than I thought. I usually just think they're just flying and they don't land, and usually you just hear them somewhere. But then thinking of creating a structure that birds can use as a floor or like as a somewhat playground for them to fly through, it would be really cool to explore that. And yeah, and that big bird I noticed in research, they don't really land anywhere near people. So then I thought that the structure really won't be affected by those big birds because you have to consider their weight or something maybe. So yeah, and they usually stay next to the creek. And then after staying with my friends there, one of my friends actually lives near the same creek because it extends throughout the whole village actually, I think. Or maybe it's a second creek, but then she lives near a creek. And so she was talking to me about her concerns living next to it because it's actually, I thought it was actually nice living next to like a water stream because there's also a river in the village and people actually do enjoy living next to it. But then with a creek, it's kind of different because in that the water is kind of still sometimes and accumulates a lot of bad odors. So then it's smelly and there's mosquitoes. So then, yeah, I wanted to kind of research on the negative effects of the creek. So then, yeah, those are the two main concerns of people. So then because of this, I don't really notice it actually during like the summer, which I usually spend time in the area. But then during colder seasons, it starts to, manifest like those bad qualities of being next to a creek. So then I wanted to resolve this through the plants instead of like, kind of closing off the entire area from the creek and preventing flies from going there. I wanted to kind of use a plant that was a repellent to mosquitoes. So then, and was like good smelling because even though they're like a repellent to like mosquitoes, what if it smells bad? So I wanted to be like good smelling to counteract the bad smell of the creek. So then I was researching on companion plants where actually basil is the best companion plant you can actually have for any vegetable because it not only prevents insects from eating your vegetables or prevents flies from going near the area, it actually benefits the flavor of the vegetable it is beside apparently. I don't know how that works, but apparently it does. And actually it's proven to be true because I do plant basil next to my tomatoes and my lettuce, and it does actually benefit in the planting process. So yeah, I put here the three main qualities I wanted to emphasize about basil. Sorry, I don't know how to zoom in there. So it repels flies, toxic to mosquito larvae, because sometimes mosquitoes actually like lay eggs on your leaves of the plants, like avocado leaves, kind of, they love it. They always plant their seeds there, I mean, eggs there. But then with basil, they don't. And then with basil, it also has a strong, pleasant smell. So then, yeah, I wanted to talk about that. And so I did more research on basil. And then what's important about companion plants and the actual plant you're trying to harvest from is that you really need to make sure that both plants have more or less the same care process or like same soil quality that they need and sunlight even. So then with basil, it's actually pretty similar because it does love a warm climate, 6 hours of sunlight each day, which is pretty similar to ampalaya plants, which do need direct sunlight, but not too much direct sunlight where the leaves would start to burn. and then soil, which is neutral pH level, watering, well drained. But then with Ampalaya, it can last pretty well with being flooded, but then it does thrive better with well drained soil. And also the spacing. With Ampalaya, it can actually be like, spaced out in the two and then have basil in between, because the basil roots aren't that long and don't really overlap other plants' roots. So then it would be pretty safe to have both of them together. And yeah, and it's also a food that you can have and people can easily pick out of, like the ampalaya, which I really like. Since it's next to a park, people would visit and kind of just pick out of the ampalaya vines. And even with basil, it's pretty easy because within a week, actually, from a dozen basils, probably you can get like six cups of leaves, 6 to 8 cups, I think, of the leaves, which is a lot considering the amount of people going there and probably not gonna, remove so much of the leaves from it. But then it does grow pretty fast and it's easy to care for and easy to propagate. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So then, yeah, okay, this is my last slide. There's no pictures, I'm sorry, but I was just thinking about the entire project and I was just like, are we building a greenhouse? Is that our project or is that what I want to do? And then I was just thinking about how, like you were saying, that the plant shouldn't be just something that you put on the architecture and as a decoration, or like, the architecture is like the, kind of caring for the plant or something. I just really wanted it to be like, oh, the plant's meant to be there and no one really questions it. It's just, and like if people like kind of question if they should be there because it's like an area for plants, like is it okay if you walk through even though we don't want to touch the plants, or like, if it might be kind of delicate to be near it because the plants might die if I go near it or something like that. Because I know people do have that concern because there's actually a greenhouse already in this village, but then it's kind of small and people don't really visit because they don't know whether or not they should or can. So then I wanted it to be something that was very interactive. And then I started to research on playgrounds where it wasn't even obvious that it is a playground. It's just like a playground for the eyes or something. Like people just visually just look around and just kind of like imagine through the shapes or whatever, or the form of the entire thing, they'd be stimulated or something, which I felt was really nice because like now that it's quarantine and with the virus and everything, you don't really want to touch anything. You just want to look at stuff or just pass through things. So then I felt like being able to experiment with like understanding what a playground is to like in a visual context instead of like a tactile thing, like that would be really interesting. So yeah, that's it.
Okay,
that's all I did.
You actually raise a lot of questions that are very valid, especially towards the end. But don't get stuck with the single idea towards the end because it will negate all the initial research that you produce, because you already generated a lot of information and those information act like ingredients to generate an architecture. And regarding your question, like if it's going to be a playground, if it's going to be a greenhouse, it can be anything. We don't want to define a single typology for this project. I want you guys to develop a typology, although it's very hard to claim that we are inventing one because almost all uses and programs are explored already. It can be a hybrid, definitely, but I also like your statement, your rhetorical statement about what if it's a visual playground. It can be, but my worry about that is that it might negate the other research, because I really like the bird idea, etc. And when the moment you said that these guys don't want to be in the presence of humans, if there's a way to design for them, probably. And I remember Fabico's research about depriving the upper floors of the shop houses from sound by using architecture. by bouncing off sound, etc., then probably it can be along that line. That probably the upper floor. I'm just exploring. I'm just so that everyone can have a picture
Yeah.
how to deal with the process. All right. So because you generate all of this information, it's time for us to see the potential of all the research materials that you produce. That's why whenever anyone is in my studio, if you don't produce anything, then we have nothing to talk about. But if you produce a lot, then probably we have more potential for developing an architecture. And in this case, you produce a lot, which is very commendable. It can be used, all of them can be used, but it can also, it's also possible that you might edit out some of the information as well because there's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So, but in my case, if I'm going to take inspiration from a material, like what I said about what if it's the bird sanctuary, that the birds won't feel that there are people at the ground level, but the people at the ground level will hear them tweet. I think it would be a nice experiential place. And then you might mention of the mosquitoes. Then probably the presence of the birds can prevent the mosquitoes from going there because they can be eaten. I know that birds
Yeah.
eat insects, and then another idea you talk about the stagnant water. Then an idea probably there's a wheel that sort of makes the water move. I don't know. So a lot of these ideas are coming in my head. So, but I want you to give, although this process, in a way, I'm tampering it already because I want everyone to have an idea how we approach an idea-based, research-based, creative research-based type of project, so that you have an idea how we develop, how we extract ideas and turn into something architectural. But I want you to decide if you want to take that idea or create probably another direction. It's really up to you. But I'm just giving you an example of how to approach it. You get it? So it can
Yes.
be, all of those things can be one of that lang, and then we develop it into a 2,000 square meter floor area project space. But it's just a minimum. So but yeah, I'm excited with some of those ideas that I mentioned. But at the end of the day, it's really up to you. It's your process. And um, if I'm going to look at what you presented to me, I think we can do a lot of stuff that is very interesting. Okay? Thank you, Bea.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Sorry, I dismiss you right away.
Oh no, I don't really have anything
Okay, see ya.
right
Thank
now.
you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
Jericho.
you.
Okay, so I'll just share screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jerica, habulin ka ni Cooks. Gising na
Ay,
siya.
wag. Wag joke lang. Actually, that,
Gising
I
na,
mean,
sir.
sir, if he's gonna habol, mas better. So I can get more input. If
Wait lang ah.
Valid.
Is he ano ba? Is he trying to get in?
Kakain muna daw, sir.
Okay, baka matapos tayo agad kasi bilis lang to. Sige.
So I won't wait for him na, sir.
No more na, no more.
So sir, I remembered from last time. I had the same idea, noise pa rin. Pero yung, di ba yung problem ko last week was my architecture was outside the site. It was beyond the site. So I had to adjust that problem. So, pero also one of my problems before, yung sabi ni Cooks, I focused too much on sound diffusion when I should be focusing more on sound absorption. So, pero this time I tackled something different because I actually found a Google article that stated instead of trying to absorb sound, why not cancel it with another sound? So I found out that there is this type of sound called white noise. It's the type of noise you hear, but at sometimes you don't really notice it because of its constant sound. Examples would be yung buzz ng TV kapag parang walang channel, or yung blow of the wind, flowing water, moving of leaves rustling. So I tried to tackle to that direction. So I took my site and I noted down some elements that could produce those kind of white noise. So since I stayed with the same plant from last week, I still chose yung sunbird since they are a common species of pollinating yung lipstick plant ko. I also went with yung mga leaves, flow of water, and yung wind when they pass through objects. So among these four elements that I chose, yung water at saka yung leaves parang andun na siya eh. You just have to like put it. So I focused more on the sunbirds and how wind would flow to objects. So one of the first mas inuna ko yung wind. So I tried to find some examples of how wind can act as a white noise. So the first two sa left, those are like aeolian sounds. It's like when wind passes through them, they
make it full screen. Kasi, yeah.
How do you full screen this? Okay na ba to, sir? Again.
We're looking at your Google Drive folder. It's not really focusing on the slide.
Wait, let me find yung photos mismo para for this.
Yeah, better.
Okay, I'll just open each one. Can you see yung mga pictures, sir? Or so here the first two on the left, those are actually wind, how do you call this? Parang wind structures. They're called parang aeolian harps. That's what they call it. So it's like wind goes through a passageway and then flows through the metal, and it has another exit and it produces a sound. On the third, this is actually a wind. Parang it's a chapel that when wind passes through it, it also creates a sound because yung outer side na wall.
Naka-zoom in dun sa tatlong birds. So you need to pan.
Ay, wait lang. Wait lang, sir. Ano ba?
Sa'yo to, akin na ha.
Wait lang, sir. Can you see this one na, sir? Kita na ba, sir?
Kita na.
Okay. So the third photo is actually a chapel. So outside that wooden wall, there's like a hollow element that wind flows through. Tapos may mga strings na attach dyan that produces sound. Tapos the fourth one is actually a wind tower. It's around somewhere in Southeast Asian countries, I think. It's like wind flows through inside and it goes down. And since there's like a water reservoir downstairs, it actually cools the wind. So I was focusing, I couldn't really grasp kasi marami siyang ideas. Pero around this area yung focus ko, sir. And then next, I focused on yung sunbird mismo. Since I was supposed to make a habitat also for these sunbirds, I had to focus on how big they can be if ever I would create an opening. And yung breeding nila, birth, how many, if I'm gonna create a habitat, I had to focus on how much eggs can they hatch around how many days. And I also had to focus on how they migrate so I can pinpoint on around how many birds that I'd be able to attract when in my area pag implemented na yung oasis. So my first idea was actually the one on the left side. It's very simple. It's like there's parang lalagyan and then that's where the vines grow. But from there, what I noticed, like if it's only like this, it's gonna be hanged outside, like on the balcony. So the birds would only probably be limited to outside lang. But I wanted yung parang yung oasis ko to flow inside the house din. It's like another element that goes inside the house para may experience. Because yung white noise, sir, I wanted it like what you said last week. You said last week that I have to focus. What if, like, yung absorbing material ko was the material of the walls, yung exterior element. For this part, I tried focusing what if it was an element inside, and then if the noise was able to come in, the white noise inside would cancel it out. So what I made was,
And what the red bar is, what the yellow ones are.
wait lang, how do I zoom in this, sir? Yan, kita ba, sir?
Yeah. Kasi right now it looks like a plotter, and then and then some grains are coming out of the plotter.
Yun, sir, yung vines. Those are my plants, sir. Tapos, after that,
the red bar is what?
ito yung lagayan ng plants, sir.
Okay.
So, if it was to be... Choppy ka po, sir.
How does it create white noise?
Sir, kasi yung let's say yung first is yung sa first sheet ko is basically how the plants when wind pass through them, they create a rustling sound. So that was my first type of white noise that I thought of.
And then second, wind? What if there's no wind?
Sir, kasi if there's no wind, it would still kasi I still have the birds. If they are able to go through here, kasi since my plant attracts sunbirds, so it also becomes their habitat as well.
But the white noise is for the birds, diba? So that you can attract them.
No, the white noise is from the birds, sir.
From the bird. So why did you create the white noise for the benefit of whom?
Kasi sir, di ba I talked about yung last week, I focused more on the material, how it absorbs noise. And then I found an article on how white noise can cancel out industrial noise. So in a way, parang hindi na masyadong, it's like a noise cancels out the other noise. Gets po ba, sir?
Okay. For the benefit of the user.
Yeah. So it's not too noisy. Like I tackled another exploration instead of the material. Why not use noise to cancel out noise instead of the material that absorbs it? Okay. So I wanted this element to also flow inside the house. Because if sound does parang linampas niya yung outer wall, and then if there's white noise available inside, it still cancels it out in a way. That's why I wanted the vines to reach inside. If the habitat of the birds are outside, but the flowers, the nectar is still inside, they can still go inside. So there'd be like circulating throughout the structure.
Okay.
So this is how I imagine it would be. Since yung plant ko, I used initially yung sun carving ko just to test out how it would actually look like when I have an exterior model already. And then from there, I tried to, since my plant doesn't really need direct sunlight, they just need a lot of sunlight. I use yung mga areas wherein the sun can go in based from my sun carving model. So from there, I have the surfaces where the plants will be located. So in a way, ito yung tatlong, this side is one hole where the sunlight can go through. This is the 8 a.m., 9 a.m. sunlight. And then both these two entrances are from the 4 p.m. sunlight. So in a way, if the plants will be situated here in the surface, they'd still get the good type of sunlight and not the harsh ones. In a way, pag pumasok yung birds, they'd be flowing, yung direction of flow nila is from outside where their habitats will be to inside where the pollination happens. And at the same time, I used a curved surface so when the wind enters, mas mabilis yung circulation niya. So I get the maximum amount of white noise if possible. Yun lang, sir. Okay.
Okay. The diagram on the sun carving, it's very hard to understand. Like the orange part, I don't know if it's happening inside. It's not an intuitive diagram,
Okay, sir.
right? And then there are missing information, like the kind of plant that is you're talking about, unless I forgot about it, unless you presented.
Nasa week 3, sir.
Okay.
I
So,
based my information from there.
yes. But like, how long will it grow? How long will you have a fully grown vine? Those information, the yield, etc. How long do you have to wait for it to happen?
Am I supposed to? Yung vines, they usually grow in 2 to 3 years, sir.
Okay. So that's actually a
Yung,
problem because uh, you have to wait for 3 years. A lot of things can happen within the next 3 years. So so you won't have any birds that you claim for this building. You won't have any plants for this building. So what will this building do?
Sir, first I was planning what if yung plants na nakuha ko were about parang medium size grown na. And then after that's the time when they start to enclose the whole surface, yung parametric surface na pinakita ko.
Okay, what is the main purpose of this project? Because if that is your approach, it sounds like you're treating it as a decoration. It sounds like you're treating it as a cosmetic, not really propagation. You know what I mean? So the mindset is very different because basically you just want to add it. You didn't really grow it. You didn't really nourish or nurture a plant. You get it? So, but with that kind of approach, the intention is very different. You know what I mean? So,
Yes, sir.
what can you do to? What will you do? What will this building do? What's the program? Like, right now you focus too much on the spectacle. Of course, as a mentor and as an author of this agenda later on, I always look for the architectural spectacle, the program spectacle. Um, when I say spectacle, like the magic that it creates. You know? So if I'm gonna take Bea's work, like I imagine a very sculptural form, even John Francis or Zhao's work, um, because it does something, because it creates something. Here, you need to force it so that you have that spectacle. You need to focus first on how things work. Then the result is the spectacle, not the other way around. Okay, so that it's really a natural process. Like the building lives because of that process. Okay, don't force it. Otherwise, it will fail. Okay? Sige.
That's an answer.
All right, sige. Okay, next. Thank you, Jericho. Willie, you're next. And then Allison, and then Janil. And Matic pala. Willie Matic. Willie Matic. After Willie, then we go to Matic.
Ay, sir, di po ako nakagawa for this week kasi akala ko parang continuation lang this week yung hindi nakapag-present.
No, remember what I said? You don't have to wait for me. You need to develop the project on your own. It's independence. What we're talking about. Also, if you are really invested in your project, you don't rely on the weekly requirements given by the professor. It's a continuous project. Okay, so that's why it's very important that you listen to the critique because you also learn from it. Okay. Sige. And that's why I pointed out earlier don't treat it as a, well, in general, in my studio, I don't like the task to be like a box, like a box that you need to tick because you completed it and then okay na. I always want, students in my studio are invested in the work that they are producing, and not because they just want to finish it. Because if you have that attitude, the learning will be more maximized because you are really investing and immersing in the process. Okay?
Okay,
Sige.
sir. So for next week, sir, pwede ko bang dagdagan na lang yung further study for next week?
Yes.
Like, gagawa na lang din po ako.
It's not just about dagdag, but it's all about how you develop it based on the criticisms that we already provided for the other students. All right. It's not enough that you just keep adding, and then I don't actually next week I don't want to see sun carving anymore. Okay. So okay, thank you, Willie. It's okay because you're still trying to learn how this class works. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Matic. Okay. Sorry, Matic. I have to hold you lang for a while. My dinner has arrived, the delivery. So, sige, I'll pause